Does doing the right thing come at the cost of business performance? Can ethics and profit coexist? Welcome to the Human Conversation podcast. Join host Kaumadi Gowda for candid conversations with industry luminaries as we navigate the maze of decision-making in today's global workplace. Each episode offers a window into the minds of leaders achieving remarkable outcomes while balancing diverse priorities and stakeholders. Tune in for thought-provoking insights and actionable strategies on leading with ethics every day. Because in the pursuit of excellence, integrity matters.
Our guest today is Jessica Bensch. Jessica is a Canadian Indian living in Switzerland and working as an agile coach in a pharmaceutical company. She's managed many high-profile organizational change projects and led employee engagement initiatives over the course of 20 plus years. In 2019, Jessica championed a grassroots movement within the company she worked. The focus was on upholding company values and psychological safety at work. Within 2 years, the efforts gained over 25,000 engagements. Jessica has been recognized with more than 20 global awards for this initiative. Jessica is now building worldwide not-for-profit movement called Vanguard Voices on the topic of psychological safety. She deeply believes that we do not change the world by simply keeping quiet or perpetuating the status quo. We make positive change by confronting our fears and speaking out our truth, individually and collectively. A global cosmopolitan and humanitarian, Jessica has lived, traveled, or worked in close to 40 countries. She's married to a German South African, and together they have 3 young children. Welcome, dear Jessica. I am so excited to have you. It's been a long time in the making. It's such a pleasure to sit down and have a chat. As I was just telling you, every conversation with you is so special and meaningful to me. I enjoy it so thoroughly. So I know all of the people listening to this today are going to enjoy it as well. So welcome very much to our studio.
Thank you so much. And the pleasure is all mine. I always feel a deep connection with you every time we meet.
Jessica, I've been following you for a while now, and you do so many things. You've had an impactful career in leadership advisory, coaching, change management, and you do so many different kinds of work around the world. You write, you speak, you mentor, you started a grassroots movement that's now become a global community. Is there a red thread that ties all of it together for you? What's the driving force behind all that you do?
Yes, absolutely. The red thread in everything I do is that I truly believe in creating environments where people can feel free to express their thoughts fully, openly, and contribute it meaningfully as well. I've been coaching leaders. I advocate for psychological safety and building communities. So my work is all about removing the barriers that silence people. The fear, the bureaucracy, the unspoken rules that are keeping people from speaking up, like taking risks and also driving change. And I just simply refuse to have and accept workplaces where that are places of fear. I truly believe that companies thrive when people are heard and valued and empowered. And I truly believe that changing our workplaces, particularly workplace culture, is not just an HR issue, it's an everybody issue. It involves all of us. It starts with leadership responsibility, but a collective movement is needed to ensure that we have those safe workplaces that I believe that everybody craves for.
And one of the things I think that's really important to discuss is the fact that you started Vanguard Voices. Tell me a little bit about what that is.
So, Vanguard Voices is a not for profit association. Our laser focus is to bring the topic of psychological safety, that is where people can feel free to express their thoughts fully. We want to bring this topic to the forefront of workplace agendas. Psychological safety today is sometimes used as a buzzword. It's mixed up in other topics like DNI, resilience, mental health. There's a lot of different topics, and it's somehow one of many. But Vanguard Voices was founded with the belief and the research that proves it, that psychological safety is foundational for our teams and our organizations to thrive. And so we just want to bring it to the forefront. We want to link arms with companies, with leaders, with people around the world, coaches and consultants, to bring those voices to the forefront.
You feel comfortable sharing what inspired all of this? It's a big thing to do, and I bet it demands a lot from you as well, as much as it gives you joy and sense of purpose. Can you
Yeah.
share with us what inspired you to start it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working in corporate for over 20 years now. And a number of years ago, I think it was about 7, 8 years ago, our company was going through a transformation. And at that time, the messaging that was coming through from, as part of that transformation is that we need to be more bold. We need to be more courageous. We need to speak up. And I thought, that's great. And looking around, by that time, I was a number of years in the company. So I had seen a number of experiences, heard a lot of stories along the way, and felt that maybe what we were doing till then, it wasn't enough for people to speak up. And maybe a grassroots effort is needed. And so at that time, I essentially put together a team and we started a grassroots effort within our company. We were doing speaking engagements, we were doing surveys and focus groups, and sharing a lot of stories, not with the corporate jargon, but real, authentic stories were coming to the surface. And we were speaking to leaders at all levels. And at that time, we were seeing such a momentum with this effort because it was resonating. We were really getting to the core of why people felt uncomfortable, generally speaking, of bringing their voice forward. And along the way, we were, of course, speaking with leaders at all levels, and we had tens of thousands who were following us. And at the same time, what we were experiencing, and I was particularly observing, is as much as people were agreeing with the messaging, were agreeing that some change is needed, we were also facing resistance. And what I learned is that fear is not at just one level at the organization, it's at all levels. And it was very difficult to kind of push everything through without engagement at the higher levels. And what I also learned was this is not a topic specific to one company. I'm in Switzerland, so not in one part of the world. It's really a global topic. It's a human topic. And so with that understanding in mind, I thought, well, first of all, I can't let go of this passion and fire I have on this topic. And I want to make this bigger. And so that's why I founded Vanguard Voices, with the pure belief that we can make change. We can link arms around the world, and it will happen.
In addition to your absolutely passionate commitment to this idea, and I find an exceptional depth in how you connect with people and make it safe for them to really show up as themselves, their authentic selves. In addition to those things, I was curious also about what does it take, what environment or context does it take for a person to come up with a truly original, powerful idea and build that, nurture that into a global movement? What did it take for you to do that?
What did it take to build this idea into more of a
Yeah.
global movement?
So, for example, a lot of people would hesitate from sharing a good idea. They would hesitate from saying, I really care about this and I want to build this, put their hand up at the workplace and say, why don't we try this? And it has succeeded and I want to grow this further. And would you consider allowing this to grow beyond our organization? All of this takes radical courage. And I see that in you. I also wanted to ask you if what is in your assessment is needed in the environment or context for individuals to feel safe enough to have such innovative ideas and push them and nurture them and grow them.
Right. I think fundamentally, I don't see myself as courageous. I think I see myself as somebody who has a good understanding of what I stand for, what I tolerate, and what I do not. And so when I think about what I stand for, what my values are, some of my values include justice and equality and just doing the right thing. I I just believe in treating everyone equally as human beings, eye to eye, not looking up, not looking down. And and that's what fuels me forward. And I'm a big believer that as well that we all have a purpose. And a purpose, I was born with a particular purpose to fulfill in life. And I believe everybody has their own purpose. I have discovered my purpose through this experience, in corporate and now through Vanguard. And even though it's hard, even though there are lots of struggles along the way, I know I can't let this go because my values are too deep and my purpose is very much on my mind.
I love that. And it's perhaps the perfect segue to uh, what I am passionate about, which is ethics and integrity. And through this podcast, Jessica, I'm trying to democratize the idea that to be aligned with our values and to be ethical and feel high integrity in all our decision making is feasible to all of us. I find that far too many professionals often talk themselves down in their own heads that I don't have enough agency or enough power to sway the decision. And I believe that through your work, you too are demonstrating that this is possible and it's really, really important for individuals to feel this way. And therefore, my question, what do the terms ethics and integrity mean to you in the context of all that you do?
Yeah, to me, this is ethics and integrity isn't just about doing the right thing. It's about doing it even when it's inconvenient and it's uncomfortable and even costly. And integrity, particularly, is about doing what we say we're going to do when no one's watching. And it's how we're handling hard decisions. It's the moments where we could easily take the another way, but choose not to. And from an ethics perspective, and particularly leadership, um, it means aligning what we say with what we do. It's words with action. And so it's not about words on a wall, like from a company perspective, values written on a wall. It's making sure that those values guide our decisions, even when it's hard.
Lovely. That's really ringing so true to me. And I feel that I see you model that. Um, eh, I see you modeling this in your own life in the way you handle people, but also perhaps as an agile coach and a subject matter expert on change management. Have you observed um, any perhaps typical ethical dilemmas that professionals might face? And what would your advice be to professionals on this, perhaps related to the work you do around psychological safety and trust?
Yeah. So a big part of my corporate work is coaching, and I've been coaching various leaders throughout my career. But one moment that stands out is when a leader who wanted to have a culture of openness in his team was unknowingly shutting down voices that were around him. So he would say, I want open feedback. I want honest feedback. My door is always open. But the reality from his team's perspective was when people challenged him, there were some subtle consequences. So they were excluded from key conversations or decisions. Their ideas were dismissed in meetings, and basically their confidence in raising their voice to him stalled.
Wow.
And so I had a choice where, because I was coaching him, I could have played it safe and gently nudge him in a certain direction, or I could name the issue outright and risk the discomfort that came with it. With that situation, I chose to be direct. And it wasn't easy because there was resistance at first. And over time, that leader realized that psychological safety wasn't just about asking for feedback, you also have to earn it. And so the most ethical thing to do in this situation for me that we can all do is tell the truth. And it goes back to telling the truth, speaking your truth, even when it's hard.
Oh man, that hits home. That's such a powerful example, and I might be perhaps projecting. So I'm asking you if this is how you see it as well. What I'm receiving from you right now is that you're making it okay that sometimes it might not feel safe to call something out, and it's okay if a person cannot do it directly and may choose to do it a little later and slightly more indirectly. But in this case, you made that choice because you made it clear that there was a choice you made, which I received as it's okay if you cannot make that choice as well. And that's how I experience it, Jessica. Is you're a very balanced and kind person. And I notice this often happens with many professionals I encounter as well, that it feels super unsafe. They recognize when something is wrong,
Mhm.
but they don't feel safe in calling it out. And therein immediately is that cognitive dissonance of, I know I'm not okay with this, and I'm also not okay with me feeling obliged to be silent about it. And therefore, it just that gap grows and grows and eventually leads to either disenchantment with work, or there is a phrase now for not really showing up, even though you're physically present. And so you're saying that someone can assess in that situation, and if they feel, they can call it out, and if they need a little bit more time, that's okay as well. Would you like to share a little bit more about that and clarify if I received it correctly?
No, absolutely. Wisdom is needed. You need to sense, follow your intuition. We can usually sense when somebody is ready to receive feedback and is able to take it under the circumstances. What I often have found is when I've been direct, people come back and appreciate it. I was just complimented, in fact, just recently, where a leadership team member was saying he applauds my courage. Again, I don't see it as courage because I'm doing it as in service to that person, and to the team and the environment. It's something bigger. And so many people like to receive kind of the reflection, that from the mirror, and that's sometimes what I provide. But there are others who may not be ready, and that's where that wisdom is needed.
That's beautiful. And my next question, therefore, would be sort of building on what we just discussed. Are there some typical scenarios you notice where it triggers failure of psychological safety or trust in the workplace? In general, in workplaces, as you coach leaders today, you see some classic scenarios, canonical examples. And second is, can you also share any tips to professionals in these classic scenarios, where perhaps how would you say it? How would you begin? What's the opening gambit to be honest and tell the truth and reflect the truth back to somebody, especially in situations where perhaps you don't feel like you have all the power?
Yeah. So first of all, the gap that I often see in companies is back to what they say and what they actually do. And so in companies, we often talk about inclusion. We talk about integrity. We talk about all these values, these beautiful values, again, that are shown on the wall. We talk about them, but then some classic examples is when we're protecting the toxic performers. We encourage the feedback, but then we start to punish those who speak up. Another classic example is when there's a promise of transparency, and but critical decisions are made behind closed doors. So this gap between, say, what is said and what is done is really dangerous, and it will damage the trust. And it just teaches people to that what's said in public isn't really practice in reality, and that leaves people disenchanted and maybe ultimately disengaged. So the advice I would give is that leaders need to look in the mirror first and truly invite the feedback from others, but they need to also be looking at themselves and asking their questions to themselves, like, are we truly modeling this ourselves? Where are we falling short? What's one action we can take today to align the words with reality? People trust what they see, not what they hear. That's essentially, I think, the work that's needed in companies today.
And I observe that this is also a great parallel to parenting too. You and I have both bonded over the fact that we're also parents, and children too will trust you based on your actions and not your words. And so I think our outside personas and inside personas both need perhaps more mindful attention to the fact that our actions speak way more loudly than our words do.
Yeah.
I have scenarios in my mind where I would hesitate from speaking up. And I noticed that the stereotypes that are placed on women, the pressures that are placed on women, for example, is one scenario I have in mind. If you are an executive who is seen as assertive and demanding, can very quickly become the stereotype of, oh, that awful bitch, cold, arrogant, super pushy, rude. On the other hand, if you hold back your words and consider them a bit more carefully, try to be more empathetic and compassionate in how you come across mindfully, then that will be seen as, well, not assertive enough. And is she a strong leader? These are situations where many executives that I speak with end up feeling, I'm not sure which is the right way to go. There's so many pitfalls if your likability goes down, and there seems to be a negative correlation between career success and likability, particularly for women. Alternately, showing up as a kind, warm person who's people first is also seen as a serious disadvantage. And so that's one scenario, because there's so many others. Jessica, you could please pick one that you prefer if you don't like this one. But I'd love to hear from you in such situations when you can see the other person, perhaps your peer, perhaps your leader, has made an assumption and you would like to show up with honesty and call out things. What might be one or two ways in which you begin the conversation, or things you say so that you can be your honest self, while still, because that's how I experience you as a warm and kind person. As you said, people actually appreciate your honesty. What can we say or do that brings that reaction out of at least some of the people we interact with?
When I approach somebody in terms of giving feedback, I look at the person as another human being who is, we all have our blind spots. And so I don't come into the conversation with I don't believe I come into any conversation with any condescending tone. And I think people pick up on that. And so some of the words that I say is, hey, I mean, it depends on the context, but sometimes I say, I really care about you and I really want to see you thrive. I see these amazing qualities in you. And and I have an impression. It's also important to say, it's my impression. My impression is that you can work on XYZ. and it's usually small tweaks. I am not somebody to focus on negatives. It's more, I'm a big believer in looking at their strengths and enhancing on those strengths. And if they are willing to go deeper and really working on one particular area, then I will meet them there. Excuse me, and and provide some advice or some tips along the way. I do have a comment though about providing feedback.
Yeah.
It doesn't always feel safe to give feedback nor
Yeah.
to receive feedback. And part of the reason why I started Vanguard is because I believe that in order for us to feel safe to give feedback, psychological safety, feeling free to express our thoughts, has to be prioritized and measured and monitored at all levels of the organization. And so it starts at the top and it needs to be felt and really embedded in every corner of the organization, embedded into the workplace culture so that people can have the confidence, more confidence in giving and receiving feedback. And knowing that it's not going to be held against them in a performance review,
Mhm.
or especially when it's professional thoughts, um, in a performance review or in other, more serious cases. So I just wanted to add that point because you have to have that confidence that feedback is not going to be used against you later in one way or another.
Yeah, absolutely. That would make such a big difference, right? I know that almost every leader, no matter what their profile might be, would worry about being perceived as trustworthy, likable, to be a leader that people would want to follow. And therefore, acceptance of their leadership is so important to every leader. And what you're saying is organizations and leaders can both work firmly together to establish that by leaders being self-aware and consciously working to create that sense in their teams, in their one-on-one interactions, and organizations as well by tracking at every level, every function, every professional. Have you had success stories where you've perceived or observed, assessed some organizations to be doing this well?
I believe I haven't seen one organization do it very well.
Okay.
I see it being done in pockets. And so um I've seen like departments of 2 to 500 and even more, where at least within those departments, it's understood this is what we expect. We expect to hear your voice and your ideas and your thoughts. Bring them forward, challenge us, and the leadership receives it.
Yeah,
And so that's what I've seen. I have not seen enough.
I
Yeah,
can understand that.
yeah.
Yeah. It's hard because it's been so uncertain as well. The last several years have been rather chaotic and very VUCA, right? And so, have you, speaking of VUCA, have you come across any technology or modality or assessment system that you have seen to be particularly effective? I understand I'm not talking about any corporate sponsorship, uh, but or referral, but really I was curious as an expert in this matter. Have you seen anything that's surprisingly good? You're like, okay, that's great.
I've seen many tools over time. There's different tools in terms of, us as individuals, like MBTI is a famous one. There's 16 personalities, there's
Mm.
strength finders. From an individual perspective, you can assess. I've seen other tools like learning circle profile, LCP, which is yeah,
Mhm.
widely used in some of the corporates, and where you have an opportunity to see what are your creative behaviors, when are you in the creative space versus in the reactive space, and here you get feedback from your
Yes.
team as well, in addition to your own self-assessment. I'm always wary with assessments. They carry some weight, but shouldn't have too much weight. And in a world where we're still trying to make it safe for people to speak up, I'm conscious that maybe we're not ready for, in some cases, for assessments to be used, because I've seen assessment results being used against people, and people are kind of bucketed under one category or another. So I'm always cautious, especially when working with an organization where psychological safety is not stated first as being prioritized and important. Um, but yes, I do. Generally speaking, I think there are some very good tools out there.
Yeah, I love that you pointed that out, because as an ethics researcher, one of the things that also happens is human thinking and behavior is so heavily oriented towards bias simply because it makes our life easier. So the sooner we can box someone in, put a label on them neatly, the easier the load is on our brain. So we're always going to be so tempted to slide into that comfort zone of, I know the lay of the land, I know who my team is and what they're going to do and how I can predict their behavior. And once I can do that, I can stop thinking about that and just cruise control through that, through all of the navigations, right? And I think you're so spot on. Unless we have some better guardrails, it can be so easy to fall into the trap of just biased thinking and assuming things about people simply because we can define the profile in some way, name it in some way.
Yeah. Just before we started the recording, we were sharing, um, you know, we are living in an overloaded world, information overload,
Yeah.
lots of priorities, the juggling. And so it's understandable in one sense that why we as humans take these shortcuts and then sometimes inadvertently label people. But I like to have people be at ease. I want people to feel, comfortable. But that feedback, again, if you know that psychological safety is there and we can be human and make those mistakes, the feedback is what will, from others, which will help us identify where we have maybe strayed and where we could make some correction. Apologies.
Are there any books or quotes that have been particularly amazing for you that you want to share with the audience of this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is one book I absolutely love, and it's from Mark Benioff, the CEO of Salesforce. And he wrote the book Trailblazer. And he says, values create value. If trust is our highest value, then we must earn it every day. And so to me, this is a powerful reminder that trust is not just a single moment, it's built through consistent action. And so every decision, whether it's big or small, leaders are either reinforcing that trust or either breaking it. There's no neutral ground. And so that's the real challenge and the responsibility of leadership. And what I love about Mark Benioff's book.
Well, I'm going to be sharing this link. If people want to engage with you and find out more about your work, I know that you share posts and blogs regularly on LinkedIn. I love them. So, what's the best spot for people to engage with you? If they want to invite you, if they want to follow your work, where would you direct them?
It would definitely be LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. And I love to hear the responses and feedback and thoughts and impressions from others as well. So feedback is LinkedIn is the place for me.
Perfect. I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed Vanguard Voices Summit. When is the next one?
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking 2026.
Okay.
There was quite an effort with last year. It was our first one. And we have a few other plans in the works for 2025. So 26 feels like a more reasonable time for us to come together again, not just as individual speakers and coaches and businesses, but actually bringing companies to the summit as well, where they can share learnings and experiences at that level.
Absolutely. It takes everyone, as you pointed out. We all need to work on this together to create that trust and safety. It goes in every direction. All of us need to feel it, including the organizations that have priorities and stakeholders to appease. So, Jessica, essentially, I'm going to tell all the audience to stay tuned. Exciting things are brewing. And so if we want to catch up on what's going on, what exciting things are coming up, then we catch you on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I loved our conversation as always. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
As we wrap up today's discussion on the human conversation on leadership and ethics, it's clear that integrity and ethics are the cornerstone of leadership. Host Kaumadi Gowda thanks you for joining us in this vital dialogue. Before you go, hit that subscribe button and become a part of the community dedicated to ethical leadership. Share your thoughts and continue the conversation with #TheHumanConversationPodcast.